All right, we on Daf Tzadi Vav Amid Beis 96b, and we're going to learn about the Mekoshesh in Parsha Shalach next week. The end of the parsha, we have an incident in which somebody was Mekoshesh Eitzim, which is often translated as gathered wood on Shabbos, and transgressed Shabbos, and was sentenced to death by Beis Din. And the question is, what did he do? So Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Shmuel, Rabbi Yehuda said in the name of Shmuel, Mekoshesh Maver Abba Amas B'Shus Harabim. What transgression did he do? He carried the wood that he gathered. He carried it 4 amos in a public domain, and so he was chayiv on account of carrying. But Masnita Ton, however, there's a brisa that teaches Toilish Hava. He was detaching from the ground that he gathered not only broken pieces of wood that were already on the ground, or rather he cut some off from the trees or from essentially from the ground, and that is kotzer, harvesting, and so he was totally detaching from the ground. Rav Yaakov Amar Ma'amir Hava. Rav Yaakov says that he was gathering. And the gathering itself, we learned as one of the Lamates Malachos is somebody who gathers produce after it's been cut down, after it's been detached from the ground. The Ma'amer is harvesting it. Gathering it, making bundles. So this, according to Rav Yaakov, this would apply even not only to produce, but also to kindling wood. And that's what he did. L'maynaf kamina. So what distinction is there? What difference does it make to us whether or not he, which one of the malachas he did? He transgressed something, and what difference does it make which one it was? So nafkamina, look at the Rab. So the teaching is for Rab. The Amar Rab, Matzasagila story. As we know that Torah, the oral Torah was not meant to be written. People would write their own shorthand notes, and those were called Megillas Storim, hidden scrolls, people's personal scrolls of written Torah. So Rav Chia would gather these in order to collect brisas. So they found an unattributed Megillas Storim, such a scroll, in the Academy of Rav Chia. Because about it would say like this: Isi ben Yehuda Emir. Isi ben Yehuda would say, Avos malachas abayim chasa'achas, that there are 39. It's a 40 minus 1 principle of malachas. Ve'ena chayiv la'achas, and there's only one that he's chayiv for. So what does that mean? Achas v'sulay. There's only one chatas that he has to bring, and nothing else. But we learned in the Mishnah that there are 49 of us malachas, and we said, and the Gemara asked, what do we need a number for? We could just count them. That tell us that if in one lapse of remembering the prohibitions of Shabbos, he remembered it was Shabbos, but forgot each and every one of the 39 malachas, and did each and every one of the 39 malachas on that Shabbos, that he would have to bring us an offering for each one, so he gave us a number. Rather, what this brisa means is that there's one of the 39 that he does not bring us an offering for. That even though he transgressed it, he's not chayiv for one of them. That if he forgot, he remembered with Shabbos and forgot the malachas, that one of them would be exempt. And which one would that be? Well, we don't know which, but we can eliminate the ones that the Mekoshesh did. Rabbi Yehuda pshita le'damamer chayiv. Rabbi Yehuda therefore says it's obvious to me that that carrying in a public domain is one of those that you are obligated in a sin offering, and therefore he says that the Mekoshesh did that. Maslita pshita le'detorlosh chayiv. And in the Brisa, it's obvious that harvesting is chayiv. Rav Acha ben Yaakov pshita le'damamer chayiv. Rav Acha ben Yaakov it's obvious to him, it's pasha to him that a ma'amer, gathering produce, is chayiv. Ma'asava ha miyasle masapkele, ma'asava is masapkele. So each one, by saying that the Mekoshesh was that, is saying that this one is not a part of the doubt of whether or not there's a chatas for it. Tana Rabbana. Mekoshesh Zetzalavcha. Who was the Mekoshesh? It was Tzalavcha, the father of the 5 daughters who came to Moshe to claim their land, their father's land, coming into Eretz Yisrael. Tzalavcha, and they came and said, our father died on account of his sin. And this was as opposed to somebody who died in the rebellion of Moshe. And similarly, it says, ish, because in next week's parsha by the Mekoshesh, it says they found a man. They found a man in the desert, and here it says that their father, they claimed to Moshe, our father died in the desert on account of his sin. Rabbi Kiva says, just as over there is Salafchad, here too was Salafchad. Amala Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira. So Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira said to Rabbi Akiva, either way, this is not a good thing that you're teaching. Akiva, either way, you're going to have to face judgment on account of what you just taught. If you're correct, the Torah hid that fact that it was tzalafchad, and you are letting it out of the bag. So that's a lashon hara. There's no need for you to tell us the name, and you did. So the Torah hid it. You told it to us. So it's a lashon hara. Ve'im lav atamatzilaz al ositzadik. And if you were wrong, and it's not really what tzalafchad died from, so then you're slandering him. Either way, it was wrong to tell us that this is tzalafchad. Tzadi zayin amid aleph. Now, velo hagama gzeir shava, but he has a comparison. The gzeir shava, gzeir shava legama. Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira doesn't follow that gzeir shava. Ela mehecha hava. Well. And what did he die from then? Mevi apilu. When also next week's parsha, when the spies came back and reported, 10 of them reported evil about Eretz Yisrael. So Moshe said that the punishment of Hashem was that they're going to be in the desert for 40 years. Some people said, we're not waiting. We need to go up to Eretz Yisrael. And Moshe said, please don't go because Hashem is not with you. And they went and they died. So Tzalafchad was in that group. A similar discussion happened in this part. Aaron and Miriam talked against Moshe, and Hashem got upset at them, and she had tzaras. From the fact that it says Hashem got angry at them, it tells us that Aaron too had tzaras, got the leprosy, or whatever we call it. That's what Rabbi Akiva says. Amalei Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira. So again, Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira said to Rabbi Akiva, benkach or benkach atasid l'tisadim. Well, then either way, you're going to face judgment and you have to explain yourself as to why you told us. If you're correct that Aaron also got leprosy, the Torah hid that information, and you are making it known. And if you're wrong, You're slandering that great tzaddik. But it does say that Hashem got angry at them. That was angry in the sense of Hashem told them off. They gave him a nazifa. But it's not the same as actually getting leprosy. We have a brisa that concurs that Aaron did get tzaras. The Chsifra says, "Vayifen Aaron el Miriam." Aaron turned to Miriam. V'hine mutzaras kasholeg, and behold, she was she had a tzaras like snow. Tana. So the brisa teaches, what does it mean? Aaron turned. He turned from looking at his own tzaras to see that she too had it. Tana shapana mitzarata. He turned from his own tzaras. Once we're talking about tzaras, the Gemara brings another teaching from Rish Lakish that if somebody accuses someone else of something wrong, he gets a punishment on his body. The Chsifra, it says, Moshe says Hashem b'nei Yisrael will not listen to me. They will not believe in me, and therefore I shouldn't go to them. But Hashem knew that that's not true, that they will believe. The Jews, they are faithful, they have faith in Hashem, and they are children of those who have faith in Hashem. And you yourself, in the end, you will show a lack of trust. They are that they believed. And they're children of believers, like it says by Avraham that he believed in Hashem and in His promise. But you in the end are going to show a lack. For it says, Hashem says at the water coming from the rock, that because you and Aaron did not sanctify my name by trusting me, you will not make it into the land. So how do we know that on account of that he said to Bnei Yisrael, to Hashem, that Bnei Yisrael will not believe in him? How do we know that indeed he got punished in his body? The Sifra, it says, Hashem said, I'll show you another sign, put your hand inside your cloak and take it out, and it had tzaras. So we see that he got a punishment of tzaras on his hand. Amar Rav V'Temer Rav Yosef Bar Chanina, either Rav or Rav Yosef Bar Chanina said, Mida tova ma'ama heres lava v'mida pronis. Blessings, good things, the measure of good come quicker than the measure of bad. How do we know this? The ilu midas paranis, ksiv, when Moshe got his leprosy, his tzaras on his hand as a sign from Bnei Yisrael, so he put his hand in his cloak, on his torso, and it had a tzaras. So it says over there, Vayotzia, he took it out. When he took it out, behold, his hand was had a tzaras. So we see the tzaras came only after he took his hand out. But by the healing, because Hashem told him to put his hand back in, and he did, and then it went away. He took it out from against his torso. We see that already when he stuck it in, even before he pulled it out, it already healed. When it was near his torso, it already healed back into healthy flesh. Then the Gemara says the pasuk by Aaron. Once we talk about the signs to Bnei Yisrael, it says that Aaron's staff swallowed the snake, and it doesn't say Aaron threw his staff down and became a snake and swallowed the Egyptian snakes. Aaron's staff swallowed their staffs. Amar Rabbi Elazar says nes b'toch nes. It was a double miracle. First, it had turned into a snake, and then after it already turned back into a staff in the hands of Aaron, it swallowed the other staffs. That's a little dose of Agadita, and now back to our Mishnah. And when we in our Mishnah, we saw a case from Rabbi Akiva that you'd be chayiv for something. You have a public domain on one side of the street, private, Rishus HaYachid, a private domain on one side of the street and a private domain on the other side of the street, and you pass something or throw something across the private from a private domain, from Rishus HaYachid to Rishus HaYachid, across the Rishus HaRabim, across the public domain. And we said over there that we have a question. Are we talking about above 10 tefachim? Well, above 10 tefachim really is not the airspace of Rishus HaRabim, unless we say that it's considered as if it's down on the ground. Or are we talking about below 10 tefachim? So this was a Gemara that we saw already early in the Masechta on Daf Dalet. We're going to see it again now. So Rabbi Kiva says Chayim. So Baye Rabba asked the question: Lamatami asara pligi? Are we below 10 tefachim? And there Rabbi Kiva says Chayim, and the Chachamim say Pater. Ubaha pligi, and this is the basis of the Machlokes. The Marsav Amrin and Kaluta Kamishon Chadam. Rabbi Akiva says that once it's in the airspace, it's as if it's put down on the ground, and therefore, even though that it's in the airspace, it counts as if you took it from the private domain into the public domain, and then only into the private domain. So it's as if it's in the ground, it's on the ground, and so you chayiv for picking it up in a private domain, crossing and putting it down in the public domain. As we know, you always need the 3 steps, but if you picked it up in the private domain, it went across the public domain and back down in the private domain, and it doesn't count as if it landed in the public domain, so you didn't actually do ha'avara mirshus l'rshus. You didn't take it from one domain, private, into another domain, public, because it never landed. It didn't have the 3rd step. So Rekiva considers the 3rd step of landing happening just by being absorbed in the airspace. Kaluta, absorbed in the airspace. Kamisha honcha, it's as if it's on the ground. It's as if it's put down. Umar Savar, and the Chachamim say, Lo Amrina Kaluta Kamisha honcha nami. And they say, no, we don't, that principle does not apply. But if it's above 10 tefachim, divrei akol potter. Everybody would say that you're exempt. Everybody would say you're exempt because it's above 10 tefachim. It's above the airspace of the public domain. But we need another concept. We saw in the Mishnah that if somebody passes something from a private domain to a private domain on the same side over a public domain, that they're going to be chayiv. Why? Because that's the way it was in the Mishkan. Where was it in the Mishkan? That way that when they took the beams off to remove the Mishkan so that they could travel, the Levium would take it and they would pass it from one wagon to the next, and the wagons were large enough to be a private domain, a Rishus HaYachid. And they passed it from one Rishus HaYachid over the public domain, which was in between the wagons, which is the Machan Levia was a public domain, as we saw yesterday. So they passed it over the public domain, and they didn't throw it because they wouldn't throw the beams. So they passed it over. And the question is, do we compare and say, just as passing account from one domain, private domain to another private domain, Rishus HaYachid over Rishus HaRabim is chayiv, so too throwing would be the same, because there is essentially the same concept. That's the question. Do we learn Zorek Mimoshet? Do we learn throwing from passing? And everybody would agree that we do not. O Dilma, or perhaps Laman Masara. Laman Masara Pligi. We're really talking about above the airspace. Ubaha Pligi, and above 10 Tvachim. This is a machlokes. The Marasavar Yafin Zarek Mimoshe. One, Rabbi Akiva says that just as when you pass something over the public domain, over the Rishus HaRabim, that it's going to count because that's the way it was in the Mishkan, and it's going to be a transgression. So too in the so too when you throw it, it's also going to be chayiv. The Marasavar Lo Yafin Zarek Mimoshe. And the Chachamim say, no, we don't compare throwing to passing. Passing was the way it was in the Mishkan, and therefore for that you're chayiv. Throwing was not in the Mishkan, and therefore you're not chayiv. Avalamata miyud, but if it's below the 10 tefachim, meaning you pass something across, or you throw something across below the 10 tefachim of the airspace, which is within the airspace of the public domain, you would be chayiv, and you'd be chayiv on account of that kaluta kamishon chadami. And when it's absorbed in the airspace, it's as if it's on the ground. It's as if it landed there, and everybody, both Rabbi Akiva and the Chachamim, would agree. My time, what would be the basis? Kaluta kamishon chadami. Everybody agrees that within the 10 tefachim of the ground, there is a kaluta kamishon chadami. We say that it's as if it's put on the ground because it's in the airspace. This was a question asked of Rav Yosef asked of Rav Chisda. The question was of Rav Chisda, and Rav Amnuna answered it from this. But over Birshus Harabim Atzma, something goes above 10. Something goes from private domain to private domain over public domain, and it goes into the public domain itself. Rabbi Akiva Machayev Chachamim Poter. Rabbi Akiva says you're obligated, you transgress, and the Chachamim disagree and say you're exempt. Now, since the language of the Brisa does not say like our Mishnah, Birshus Harabim over a public domain, but says in a public domain itself, since it says that, it must be talking about that it's below the 10 tefachim, and you're throwing it across in the airspace of the 10 tefachim of the public domain. And yet it says that there's a machlokes between Rabbi Akiva and the Chachamim, so it tells us that the machlokes is in the lower 10, within the 10 tefachim. That's where Rabbi Akiva say Yechayev on account of kluta, it's absorbed, and therefore it's like it landed. And the Chachamim disagree and say kluta does not apply, and it's not as if it landed. But above, everybody would agree that we don't compare it to passing, and you would be exempt. Are we talking about that he carried it below the 10 tefachim, but if he carried it above 10 tefachim, he would not be chayiv? And the question is, when he walks across or stops in the public domain, whether it's as if that item is in the public domain. But Rabbi Elazar already said that even if you're carrying whatever you're carrying above 10 tefachim, since that's the way it was carried by the Mishkan, they carried it on their shoulders, yet it's going to count as if it's in the public domain. It's as in on the ground. So we know that already. Shekain Masa B'nei Kahas, because that's the way B'nei Kahas carried. Elolav Bezorik must be talking about that it was thrown. And and this would explain our Mishnah that it's within the 10 tefachim that you're chayiv because it's in the airspace of the public domain and it's as if it landed. But above, the Brisa indicates would not be chayiv because only in the Rishus Harabim Atzma, in the public domain itself, is where the machlokes is. So this is good proof that the machlokes in our Mishnah is talking about within the 10 tefachim, and the basis of the machlokes is, do we say kluta that once it's absorbed in the airspace of the public domain, it's as if it landed, it was put down in the public domain, and there you have the 3 steps of carrying. It was picked up in the Rishus HaYachid, in the private domain, carried across the boundary into the public domain, and even though it never got put down, it's as if it got put down according to Rabbi Akiva on account of that it's in the airspace of the public domain.
They for sure had bridges and things. So if the bridge is obviously higher than Asara, so what does it mean? Asara from the road, or how to?
Yeah, from the ground of the public domain.
A Rishus Harabim could be higher than Asara Tefachim. The Rishus Harabim itself could be
a rate. You want to know what is it? What about a raised public domain?
The Verrazano Bridge, yeah.
So that is the Rishus Harabim. You want to know underneath it, is it a Rishus Harabim? Well, I'm not sure what the question is.
I'm saying
Wherever the public domain is, wherever the public thoroughfare is, that is the Rishus Harabim.
so. It's 10 tfachim from the ground level of that Rishus Harabim.
Correct. It may be a bridge, but the Rishus Harabim is that highway, if you will.
Uh-huh.
Rabbi Lazar. However, Rabbi Lazar has a different interpretation here. Sorry. Rabbi Lazar. And this, Rabbi Lazar has a different interpretation. Rabbi Lazar says no, that Rabbi Akiva, not like the conclusion that we just said, that Rabbi Akiva is only saying chayiv by throwing something within the 10 tfachim of the airspace because it's as if it landed, or rather, even above 10 tfachim of a public domain, he's going to be chayiv. So why did it say in the brisa, in the public domain itself, to tell you the leniency of the Rabbanan say not only above 10 tfachim will I exempt you, because throwing is not the same as carrying, as passing across, but even below 10 tfachim, I'm going to say that it's going to be exempt on account of that kluta doesn't apply, and it's not it's not like it landed, in that it is, even though it was absorbed in the public domain, since it passed through and didn't end up landing, it's not like it landed. And it's also a disagreement with Rabbi Chilkiah. So to clarify Rabbi Eliezer says the machlokas is on both ends. That Rabbi Akiva says you're obligated for throwing something across a public domain from private to private, even above and also below. And the Chachamim disagree and say not only above do we exempt you, but even in the 10 tfachim airspace would also exempt you. Both above and below is the machlokas. And it also is a machlokas. It disagrees with the Rabbi Chilkiah. He says that within 3 tefachim of the ground, you threw something really low, within 3 tefachim, let's say 10 inches from the ground, from a private domain to a private domain. Chayiv, everybody agrees you're chayiv, because that's not a kluta absorbed in the airspace, but that's lavud. That's a concept of anything within 3 tefachim of the next is as if the gap is closed. Above 10 tefachim, everybody, Rabbi Akiva and the Chachamim are going to say it's going to be exempt because it's not within the airspace of the public domain. And the machlokas of Rabbi Akiva and Rabbanan is only between 3 and 10 tefachim. Above 3 tefachim, the Chachamim are going to exempt you, and as long as it's below 10 tefachim, Rabbi Akiva is going to obligate you. Rabbanan, Tanya Nami, we have a brisa that concurs with this last opinion. Within 3 tefachim, everybody agrees that you chayiv because of love. Above 10 tefachim is still prohibited. You can't carry there, but it's going to be exempt to throw something across. It's not going to be a Torah prohibition, and you don't have to bring a chatas if you did so, on account of that it's above the airspace of the public domain. And if he did so, both the place it came from, the item, and where it's going is his private domain. So he didn't end up passing it from one person's property to another, even though he threw it above the public domain. He's going to be exempt. Not only exempt, he's allowed to do this. It's not even rabbinically prohibited on account of that. It never transferred from one person's property to another. But between the 10 tefachim and below to down to 3 tefachim, Rabbi Akiva says you're still chayiv. The Chachamim say you're going to be exempt. Amar Mar, if it's all his property, it's going to be permissible. Not only is it not a Torah prohibition, it's not even a Derabanan prohibition. he's going to be allowed to do it. The Rav. Let's say this is a contradiction to Rav. The Itmer, two houses on either side of the public domain. Rabbi Baravuna Marav said in the name of Rav, Asr Lizroik Mizelazeh, you're not allowed to throw from one to the other. Shmuel Amar Mutal Lizroik Mizelazeh, Shmuel says you are allowed to throw from one to the other. Now, Velami Akim Nelahi, Kagoin, the Midlichad, Umitasichad, the Zimrin enough of Asilasui. There we already explained the reason is that one side is lower than the other. So even though, as we mentioned yesterday, that they would have these ledges in front of their buildings that went in a protrusion that went into the public domain, and they would put a plank down from one to the other in order to be able to walk across or pass things across. But over here, the plank, one side was lower than the other, so the plank was on an angle, and as a result, it's more likely that whatever you're carrying across would fall. And if it falls in the public domain, you may go down, pick it up, and bring it back up to the house. And as a result, you're going to carry from a public domain into a private domain because it falls into the public domain, and you're going to go and get it. And therefore, the Chacham said we don't carry from one to the other. Don't pass something from one to the other, even if it's your own, on account of that maybe you're going to drop it and go get it. Either one said to the other.
You froze for a minute. If you could go back over that.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Where?
Where I thought it's from Lema Terve Tuvta.
Lema Terve Tuvta the Rav. Let's say this is a contradiction to Rav, who said that if you have two houses on either side of the public domain, two houses on either side of the public domain. Rabbi Baravuna said in the name of Rav that you're not allowed to throw from one to the other. Shmuel says it's permissible, but Rav says you're not allowed to. So the Gemara says, didn't we explain over there? The reason is because one house is lower than the other, and when you're creating the plank to pass something over or throw something across, it's harder to get it right, and it may fall. And when it falls in the public domain, you may go to get it, and then you're going to carry from the Rishus HaRabim, from the public domain, into your house, a private domain, and that's why you're going to be the Chachamim prohibited it. Not on account of that the actual passing across is going to be a problem or throwing across is going to be a problem because they're both your own private domain. And the reason is on account of that you may go to get it when it falls. One is higher, one is lower. Is even enough of us. Maybe something's going to fall into the Rishus HaRabim, you're going to go and get it. So either Rav Chisda said to Rav Amnuna or vice versa. We see this concept many times in Shas, that anything is within 3 tefachim, about 10 inches of each other, that it counts as if it is a sealed area, it's closed, that gap is not there. Where do we know this from? So at first, it was addressing it in public domain. So saying that the street itself, even if it has a bump within 3 tefachim, that's just a part of the public domain, because you cannot make a street perfectly smooth. He says you don't use a plane, which we use to smooth out wood. You don't use that on a street. So a street's always going to be a little bit bumpy, and as long as this bump is less than 3 tefachim from the rest of the street, it's going to count as absorbed within the street. So that's why we see that 3 tefachim is as if it's on the ground, it's flat. Well, so why did you end at 3? Maybe 4 tefachim is also a bump that is normal for a street level. Besides, it's not only in carrying and in street level, it's true also on walls and mechitzas. The Tanan, we learned somebody hangs a wall, a curtain, from up downward, and he's making, let's say, a sukkah or some other halachic barrier. So he's making a sukkah wall, and he hangs the curtain from above down to below, but it doesn't hit the ground. It is it's dangling 3 tefachim above the ground. So the halacha is if the gap is a complete 3 tefachim, psula, it's going to be an invalid wall. But if it's less, so it's 2.9 tefachim off the ground, kshera, it's going to be kosher, as long as the wall is stable. It's going to be kosher. And over there, you can't tell me it's because it's impossible to make the street smooth or the ground smooth. It's a gap. It's a gap in your wall, and yet it's going to be kosher. So we see that 3 tefachim is not a gap. The Gemara says, Hasam Haina Taima. There, the reason is Mashum Dahavana Mechitza Shagadim Boikimba. There, the reason 3 tefachim is too much of a gap, and less than 3 tefachim is a okay gap. It's because goats will get underneath the wall. Calves, goats, kids, they would get underneath that wall if it's 3 tefachim. If it's less than 3 tefachim, they won't get under it. So it doesn't count as a proper barrier if some animal can get underneath it. The Gemara says, okay, teinach lamata, lamayla meikel meimer. But the halacha is the same for the above. That if you started your wall on the ground and you got up 7 tefachim, and you have less than a 3 tefach gap to the top of the wall to the 10 tefachim, which is a minimum to have a halachic wall, that it's going to count. It's going to count as a good barrier as long as you have something there on top. That gap of 3 tefachim will not be a gap because it's less. That gap of 2.9 won't count as a gap. And there, it's not because the goats can get through. Ella, rather, kol pachas mishlosha kalavud dami helchas gemira. Rather, it's a halacha Moshe Sinai, as we see elsewhere in the Gemara. The Gemara says that shiurin, mechitzin, and chatzitzin, halacha Moshe Sinai measurements. All the measurements of the Torah rarely, other than some of the menachos, of the karbanos, almost none of the mitzvahs in the Torah have measurements. So all the measurements are halacha Moshe Sinai. And mechitzin, the halachas of walls and various barriers, and chatzitzin, what counts as a chatzitza, as a barrier in mikveh, is halacha Moshe Sinai. Tana Rabbana, merushusa rabim l'shusa rabim merushusa yachid be'emtza. Our Mishnah had a case where you had a public thoroughfare and a reshus hayachid on either side. You had a reshus rabim that had a reshus hayachid on either side, and you passed from the reshus hayachid to reshus hayachid. What about if it's the inverse? You have a public domain and a private domain in between. So you have a highway going north and a highway going south. Each one is a reshus rabim, and on the divider you have a toll booth. I don't know, some house that's there. So that's going to be a private domain because it's an enclosed private domain. And you pass something from one public domain through the house to the other public domain. So Rebbe says that counts as picking it up and putting it down in the private domain, and picking up in the public and putting it down in the private, and therefore you're going to be chayiv on account of that you picked it up, crossed the boundary line into the house. And now even though it went through the house to the other public domain, but whenever it was in the house, it was as if it landed. But Chachamim say you're exempt, even though you're not allowed to do it. It's not going to be a Torah prohibition. Rav Shmuel, Damar Tavaya, and Rav Shmuel both explain that the house is chayiv. When it went through, it's talking about a house that had a roof, a ceiling. It wasn't just that it went through a fenced-in area, which would also be a reshus hayachid on account of that it had walls, the requisite size, 10 tefachim. So it's an enclosed and therefore private domain. We're talking about a private domain that had a roof as well, because then it's as if the entire space is filled. And when it went through, it landed, even though it was in the air, but the air itself is a good landing space. The Amrina basic command because we say it's as if the house is completely full. Aval she'ena makura, but if it's open to the sky, look, there, Rebbe would not say that the airspace of the private domain, even though it goes up to the sky. We know that public domain, Rishus HaRabim airspace, only goes up to 10 tefachim. Rishus HaYachid airspace goes all the way up to the sky. Nevertheless, it doesn't count as having landed there. Amar Reb Chanan Rabbi Yehuda Mashmuel Mechayva Rebbe Shtayim. But Shmuel would say that Rebbe actually says you transgress twice, since it's as if it landed in the airspace because it has a ceiling. So it's wherever it went through. It's as if it rolled through the house. Well, then you picked it up in the public domain, threw it into the house, and it's as if it landed in the house. So you did one transgression out of the public domain, across the boundary line, and landing in the house. And then it continued. So then it's as if you picked it up in the house and crossed out back into the other public domain, and it landed there. So you have two full carrying from the public into the private landing, and then picking it up and out of the private back into the public. One for bringing it in and one for bringing it out. It says in the inverse. Rav Chana asks a question. We're up at Tzadei Zayin on the base now. Well, one bringing in is a tolda of taking out. Is the primary category is taking something out of a private domain into a public domain, and bringing in is the tolda. And you're going to be chayav two chatases on account of having brought something in and brought something out. Well, we saw yesterday the machlokas that the Chachamim say that any time you did the principle, the av, and the tolda of that av and the tolda of that principle, that you would only bring one sin offering, because even though you did two different actions, and even though that you had a lapse of the halachas HaShabbos about those two, you're only going to bring one sin offering because it's one principle of the 39 malachas. And we saw that the Chachamim say that's why we have principle avos and toldas, principles and subcategories. And over here, the bringing it in is a subcategory of the av of taking it out. And so he should only bring one sin offering anyhow, because it's all one a category of malacha. But Tani Rebbe Advarim, that Rebbe said that the 39 malachas we learn from things, the things, which is 3, and Eile, which is 36, which tells me that there's 39 malachas. Eile lamatas malacha shenemra l'Moshe Sinai. And we said that the reason for the count is to tell you that there's a separate chatas for the avos and not for the toldos. You're right. You teach Rebbe about that case, and therefore you have a question. The Rebbe. Anan other Yehuda masnina. We teach it about Rabbi Yehuda's teaching, v'lo kashila, and therefore it's not a question. Which the teaching? The Tani we learned. Somebody threw something, they picked it up in a private domain, and they threw it out into public domain. It didn't only go where he wanted, which was right outside of his private domain into the public, but it actually went further, another 4 amos into the public domain. And the Gemara later is going to ask which was his intent, as we saw earlier, that it has to land where he intends. If it goes somewhere farther or closer, it's not necessarily going to be an av malacha. It's not going to be a oraisa malacha because his intent didn't happen. The Gemara is going to tell us later he intended wherever it lands. He doesn't really care. So he explicitly thought wherever. But it landed, let's say it bounced. It first went immediately after outside of the public domain, and then went again 4 amos later, and that's where he said he would be chayiv twice. The Chachamim say that he's going to be exempt. Amar Rabbi Yehuda said it in the name of Shmuel, Rabbi Shtayim, that Rabbi Yehuda said would obligate 2 sin offerings here. Achas mishum matzah, one for taking it out into public domain. Achas mishum ha'avara, one for carrying within the public domain, picking it up by the bounce, and carrying it across and putting it down after 4 amos. Because if you say it's all one action, the mechayev, mechal the rabbanan patli gamri, that would tell me that the rabbanan exempt entirely Why would they be exempt? You picked something up and you took it out of the public domain, you threw it out to the public domain, and it landed in the public domain. So Gemara says, why? Who tells you that's the case? Maybe Rabbi Yehuda only says Yechayev for one thing. But Rabbanan do exempt you entirely. I want it to land immediately as it goes out in the public domain. Rabbi Yehuda says it never bounced. The case is that he wants it to land just into the public domain, right outside his property, and it went way further. So Rabbi Yehuda says, since it's in the airspace of the public domain, it's as if it landed right in the public domain and right away, and so it counts as having transgressed, and his intention happened. Rabbanan Savri Lemrin and the Rabbanan say, no, since it's not as if it landed, in regards to this, we don't say that airspace counts as landed. His intention never came to fruition, and therefore it's not meleches machsheves, and he would not be chayiv for the act that didn't come to fruition. So tomorrow we'll continue with this. We'll review the machlokas and the discussion, and we'll continue analyzing Rabbi Yehuda's chiyuv.